One, two, three. All right, here we are in the fifth year of Health, Wealth, and Happiness Mastery. And I cannot thank you enough for rocking it out with me. What do we have now? We have 4 times 12 Health, Wealth, and Happiness trainings. Season 1 was 12 sort of training sessions. Season 2, Season 3, Season 4. Now we're in our 5th year, and we're going to come out of the gate crushing it. I just, as of the recording of this, just came out of our family vacation, where this photo came from, up in Atlanta. Then I spent 2 weeks out in Las Vegas for Think Week and my 50th birthday week. Thanks to everybody for rocking it out with me, sending me tons of birthday wishes, all these kind of things. And I did a lot of reflection over the last decade, probably the most in-depth reflection. And I want to make sure I'm giving you the gold. If I could have heard this 20, 30 years ago, this would have been a game changer for me. So I'm going to go through how to be more productive by working less from the lens of the results expert. If you're familiar with our work in like Experts Academy, Brendan Burchard, and the trainings that we have gone through and we teach others and so forth, there's 3 kinds of experts. There's the research reporter, the role model, and the results expert. And it's really critical, at least in my world, when I'm picking out mentors and so on, that they have demonstrated and demonstrated in great ways results, and they're sharing the results side of things. I'm not so much about speculation and testing and measuring things that we think will work. This is coming through the lens of results. Does that all make sense? We're also changed up how we're going to do our perspective training. It's more high performance oriented, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Before we do that though, thank you so incredibly much for being here. This is me living my full purpose. You know, we talk a lot about purpose in our work, in high performance, and in life, and in business. And it comes down to this: taking care of me, like loving me so I can love you, others, and the world. That's the essence of it. When I'm living purposefully to help others, we'll talk about this here. I'm not going to share it with you. I'm going to reveal it for you. We talk about helping others improve their life. That's one area. That's what this work's about. And in our second session today, we'll talk about helping others improve their business. That's our business internet mastery training work. And that's me living fully purposeful. And I got so clear on how I've done that historically in the last decade, and how I'm going to go after doing it if I'm blessed to be here for this next decade too. That being framed, I thought I'd touch on Think Week just a little bit, how this stuff came to be. So many people have asked, Char, hey, what is Think Week and what do you do? The first few days I did what I call rest and reflect. And the 2 key indicators, I'm not going to go into the depth of what I did, but I'm going to share with you the high level things. The first is I went through my last decade of photos. I did that on the plane ride from Florida to Las Vegas. And I went through the photos, and I have photos of me teaching, and I have photos of me speaking, and I have photos of me living life and enjoying food and enjoying time with my lady and my daughters and my family and my friends and all that. And I went through and said, do any of these pictures, was I off base? Was it not me at my best? Was it not me doing something I know that I should? Was it not me living into my fullest vibrant self? And if those came up, which they did, I said, do I do that now? Early in the decade, I was doing a lot of it because that was well before high performance, 10 years ago for me. And now I'm like, no, I'm seeing pictures of me out there on the running trail. I'm running, cool. Seeing me living life. And I asked the question as I went into some of the imagery. I said, am I fully present, or was I fully present? You know, the power of photos is when you look at a photo and you're like, you can go right back and remember where the photo was taken and who was behind the camera and what was going on and how you felt. That's the beauty of photos. So if you're going to have your own Think Week, it doesn't have to be a week, could be a day, could be an hour, whatever it is for you, go back through the last decade. So I did that through the lens of the calendar, through the lens of my photos. Then I did it through the lens of my calendar. I've used since 2007, I've used Apple Calendar, built into the Mac, the iPhone and everything, as my main calendar base, and I don't delete anything on my laptop. So it shows me all my events. And I went through literally from 10 years ago forward, and I said, are these scheduled things that I was doing, should I have been doing them? Should I have delegated them? Should I not be doing them anymore? And as I got closer to now through the timeline, I recognized this: I'm living fully productively. And I have been for the last couple of years. couple minor changes I'm going to make. I'll share some of that with you as we go through today's work. But the concept is I'm living into the best version of me from the productivity side. So we're going to dive into what productivity means now and what it is through the lens of high performance. Just in case you haven't heard that in our previous trainings, no worries at all. We're going to baseline this. If you're new to it all, that's cool. You're in the right place. If you've been down the road, here's some nuance, some dance, some extra things to think about. Before we do that, though, let's get right into why we do what we do. And I want to rate ourselves in these areas. These come directly from High Performance Habits, which is the first 6 sessions of our work as a certified high performance coach. Now, if you don't know, I'm a certified high performance coach, part of the original class of 2013. I've now coached over 4,000 60-minute sessions, some of them are longer, in the last 9 years, I guess is what the math is at this point. I coach at least 15, 20 hours a week, every week. And I've done that now, except for vacations and stuff like that, I've done that for at least 6 years. I'm so dedicated to that it's just a part of me living and breathing and being who I should be on this planet. I don't say that to brag. I say that because I put the miles in. So what I'm going to share with you as we go through the perspective is a little bit of illustration on why these areas are important. And if you want more information on that, the science behind it, let me know. We can direct you to that. Brendan, the leader of High Performance Institute, author of High Performance Habits, has gone through and science-backed these areas. So what these areas are the 6 critical areas that high performers pay attention to live a high performance life. And the very first one, when we think about health, wealth, and happiness in our life, is clarity. Having clarity about who they are, how they interact, and what keeps them successful. So I'd love to know, as you think about your clarity in life about who you are, how you're interacting with others, are you clear about what qualities, traits, and characteristics you need to be exhibiting when you're talking with others? Are you clear about what creates, builds, and maintains success for you? In our second session of our high performance work, we dive deep on clarity. Our first session, just so you have a frame of reference, is focus. Getting focused on the right things. Where are we in control and command of our life? Where are we out of command and control? And what our habits are that support us and maybe don't, and we need to shift. Second session is clarity. We develop words that exemplify who we want to be clear about who we are. Mine, present, loving, bold. How am I doing? From the interactive side, my words, enthusiastic, compassionate, passionate. From the success markers, focused, disciplined, purposeful. You see, and I live to these, and I hope you're sensing it. So that's a 10 for me because I'm so dialed in and I've been in practice with this. But I'd love for you to take some time, rate below. If you're watching the video, rate below. If you're listening to the audio, rate it somewhere. How you're doing, and if it falls below an 8, what you can do to level up clarity, to be a better version of you for yourself, for others, and to create more success in life. Does that all make sense? Second one is energy. And I hope you're sensing I'm bringing good energy today. Mental, emotional, spiritual, physical energy. Do you have consistent energy throughout the day? Does it dip at night when you're ready to go to bed? Or is it like this, a roller coaster? Or are you just like tanked? Do you walk through the door after work? Assuming if you're out for work. A lot of people working from home. But when you get out of your work environment, are you tanked for the day or are you ready to go? And I got to tell you, I'm ready to go. The beauty of high performance for me is that I got rid of this from an energy perspective with sugar dips and all that, and I've gone into this, and then time for bed. Not every day, but majority of the time, more often than not. Yeah, I still like to party here and there, stay up late, have fun. Especially out in Vegas, rocking it out, having some fun at Beauty in Essex, beautiful restaurant at the Cosmopolitan, China Plebano, the hidden bar in the Cosmopolitan, Ghost Donkey. It's in the back of a room. You don't even see it. It looks like a closet. You go in there and poof, there it is. Another place to hang out and rock it and have some fun. Lemongrass at Aria, Catch at Aria, Javier's at Aria, Bardot at Aria, Salt and Ivy. These places were so good. So yeah, I was out having fun, doing my thing. But when I get into the rhythm of serving and taking care of that, outside of the fun of life, I keep these things in mind and have that sustainable energy. Does that all make sense? Sometimes you gotta get a little loosey-goosey to rock it out. We'll talk about that too. So your energy, over the last, we'll say the last month, clarity and energy. What's your rating here? If it's below an 8, what's one thing you can do to level up energy, to be more consistent with energy? Courage is the next item. And when we think about courage, it's courage of saying what needs to be said, but delivering it in a positive growth format. Courage about, you know what? I got to do that thing for me. I've got to take care of that. I got to stop procrastinating. I got to move that thing forward, and I've been dragging my feet on it. I got to be courageous here. I got to be brave. I got to go after it. So if you look at life and you think about all your ambitions and all your goals over the last, we'll say the last month, and you rated how courageous you've been at going after them. 1, not at all. 10, crushing it. What is that for you? So energy-wise, for me, it's an 8. For courage, it's a 9+. Not a 10, but a 9+. I've got these ambitions, came out of Think Week with an action list. I've been rolling through them, going after it. Next up, topic of the day, productivity. Productive. And here's where we'll frame this item. What is productivity defined now? So when we think of productivity, like the general rule is we get a lot done. We get stuff done. But the rule in high performance is, do we get the right things done? And what does that mean? It means that we've taken time to set intention about what we want to do and how we want to proceed and go after life. Like we've thought through our life's work and our life's ambitions, and we've scheduled them. I'm going to go to Europe for a week. That's going to be vacation. After that, I'm going to create that thing, and I'm going to sell that thing. Or I'm going to go and do this thing. And I've scheduled that, and I've got time for that, and I'm bringing good energy into that. I know how I want to feel during, before, after, and even as I reflect back on it as a future memory. And I'm also taking care of my responsibilities. I'm not letting things slide. I'm taking care of my responsibilities and going after my life's work. That's the 2 big areas of high performance productivity. And I got to say, that's a 10 for me at this point, going after it. The sustainability of that might be the trick. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to rock it now that I'm in my 50s. Next up is influence. Let me spell influence right. So when we think about influence, it's influencing ourselves, teaching ourselves how to think, challenging ourselves, challenging our own character, challenging our contribution, challenging our connections. This is high performance influence. How well are you doing at challenging yourself, others, and the world even, to be better and do better? What have you done in the last month with those around you and with yourself to really go after these ideals? I know this is a tall order. It pairs well with courage and productivity, actually. But what does that mean for you? And this one is where people usually fall off. Don't feel bad if you rate yourself low here. That's totally cool. So I'm going to give myself an 8 with influence. There's a lot more work I can do in challenging others. I can be better about that. I tend to back off. I'm not as bad as I used to be, if you want to think of it that way. But I know I can do better there. I influence myself. I'm doing really well there. The last P ties it all together, purpose. Where do we direct all this, right? Where do we direct our clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence? Into our purpose. I shared mine at the beginning. At the essence of it all, I'm taking care of me, and I'm putting goodwill in the world. You know, I'm loving myself so I can love others. And I love others through the lens of helping them improve their lives and helping them grow their business. That's the essence of me living purposefully. And I'm more clear about that than I've ever been. So as you think about your purpose, A, is it clear for you? B, have you been living into it in the last month? What's your rating there? For me, that's a 10. 10 plus on purpose. Going after it. Here's a great example of it. The girls and I going over to Uncle Adam's, that's my brother by the way, and just hanging out, playing games, doing the fun, just being with each other. We haven't seen each other in quite a while thanks to the pandemic and so forth, but just having fun. And I need to have this imagery for season 5 to remind myself and to remind you to make sure you have fun with those you love, care for, and are with. Here's a big takeaway from the 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. She said these people that she interviewed as they exited this life, they had terminal illnesses, in the tune of thousands, had these 5 themes. And one of the themes was, I wish I hadn't let go of my golden friendships. When you're dying, all that matters are your friends, she said. Second, I wish I'd let myself be more happy. Have more fun. Gave myself permission for that. Does that all make sense? This image reminds me we need that in our life just as much as we need to do the things that we're working to create the income to have the life we want. Those kind of things. We need to have just as much fun as we need to have work. I would say we need to have more fun than work. We need to make work fun. How about that? We're going to go over that. Does that all make sense from the productivity side along with the perspective of this? I hope you're enjoying our new format as we step into these 6 critical areas. Big part of high performance habits. If you do not have high performance habits, I am more than happy to buy you a copy of it because I know what it can do for you. I've seen what it's done for hundreds of people personally. What I've heard from the team, the High Performance Institute team, is what it's done for millions of people, rocking it all around the world. You can go and I think you do hashtag high performance habits just to see all the people and all the imagery of what they're doing and how they're changing their lives for the better and all those kind of things. I'm more than happy to buy a copy for you or someone you love, care for, whatever that is. I just want to make sure that I'm forwarding that for you. So let me know. Just email me or comment below. Say, Char, I'd love a copy, and we'll work that out. Kindle, hard copy, whatever it is for you. That being said, this ends the training part. This ends the perspective part of our work together. Now we're going to dive into the training. You up for it? How did we do, by the way, with our new perspective piece? Good? Love being on this journey with you. I hope you can sense the energy and the clarity, the courage, all the goodies here as we're rocking this out. So let's get started. Productivity defined now. The part that I want to make sure I reveal for you is right here. Selfish versus selfless. And that's kind of what I was alluding to up here. You have to be selfish in a good way. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of others. If you have a scheduled event with others, so many people I've coached have shared this with me. It's so awesome. If they have a scheduled event with others, they're on time or early and they wouldn't miss it. The highest performers, if they have a scheduled event with themselves, they're on time and on purpose and they wouldn't miss it. They give it high priority. And the highest performers, as we think through the tactics of productivity, they schedule their exercise. They schedule their run. They schedule their meditation. They schedule their time for themselves. And they live into it. They don't say, that's just for me, I don't need it. That's commonly what people do who are medium low performers. Or some people have assessed, I'm a no performer. That's what they've shared with me in their language. And I just want to make sure we're dialing that in for you. So let's talk about the selfless versus selfish conversation. How well are you taking care of yourself? If I was to, and I love this language, thanks Brendan for this, helicopter into your office and see your calendar, what shows up there for you taking care of yourself and taking care of others? What is that? How you doing with it? That's a big part of productivity. Now, the other side to high performance productivity is that we believe in time blocks. Single focus, concentration on one project. So an hour for this one project, single focus, everything shut off, notifications, everything else. I've let my people know I'm in a time block towards this one project. As soon as I get done, I'm going to check in with y'all, take your questions, write them down. If you need to come in and ask me something, just write it down and we'll talk about that as soon as I'm done. But now is my time to move this thing forward. The highest performers from a productivity perspective, they have 3 different projects, big ambition, life projects they're working on or business projects, whatever it is, at once, typically no more. Because they don't want to rob themselves of the deep experience of making that exceptional or world class. For me, we're working on CS for Life and the Mastery Community. This falls under my contribution bucket, the bucket of helping the world be better through my paid programs. Does that make sense? And inside that bucket, there's very clear time perspective for that every week. Time blocks for that, to move those things forward. There's also time blocks for me to go running every other day. There's time blocks for me to step into and learn some of the skills I need for these new revenue streams I've been building. Well, retuning. And they're not related to thought leadership and so forth. I shared that in our last season's training on the 9 different revenue streams. So if you want to learn more about that, go ahead. Now isn't the time to discuss that, as we're just trying to get you to think through this. Taking care of you so you can take care of others. Taking care of you, taking care of your projects, to allocating time. How well are you doing at allocating time in your schedule for fun with family, fun with friends? Going right back to Bonnie Rare's book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. Are we stirring things up for you? I hope so. So keep in mind the selfless versus selfish conversation. What I've determined that works for me, and we'll get into the science of this a little bit, my science of this, is that when I create in the mornings and manage in the afternoons, I'm at my best. Creating meaning getting into video work, doing this work with you, creating videos for my courses, creating videos that we're going to put out and share, whatever that would be. That's best for me in the mornings. Managing and coaching and that usually happens in the afternoons. Not always, but usually happens in the afternoons. That's more autopilot stuff for me. The creation is where I got to be at my best. And I'm going to share some data with you that I just couldn't believe. I was looking over my schedule and then really assessing the testing and measuring of things. Hang in there. 5 big revelations from my 10-year deep review is what we're going to cover next. The first one was this. I had to drop the 9-to-5 mindset. Going into 2011, that's a decade ago, I had the 9-to-5 mindset. It was ingrained in me through my 20s and 30s. And I had to drop that. Like, I'm going to plow through till 5 and get stuff done. What I discovered, and I hope you get something from this, is that when I'm in flow, it's usually in the mornings. Now, keep in mind, 10 years ago, I was a night owl. It was the end of 2011 where I switched to be the morning guy. When I get in flow, it's typically in the mornings for about 3 to 4 hours. 6:30, 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock. That's where I'm in, like, especially earlier in that time frame, I'm in full flow. Typically, I'm in my most creative state then. Like the world hasn't woken up yet, typically. I'm going after it. I'm rocking it. All these kind of things are coming up for me. Once I recognized where my flow state was, now the job is to plop creation into that flow state. That was a big revelation for me as I reflected back on the last decade. I kind of have been doing that. Now there's a full intention of it. Does that make sense? So that's one of the big revelations. The rest I'm going to go over right now below. Second revelation, and I was helped by Mark Manson with this one. Mark Manson wrote, The Subtle Art of Giving an F. Of not giving an F. Yeah, of not giving an F. And one of the things that I loved about one of his recent, well, actually it was an older post that I just read, was output doesn't equal input. What does that mean? From the perspective of what I learned, what I thought was, if I input, meaning I allocate time, for output, meaning what I'm going to produce, there's a direct correlation, a linear sort of functionality to it. Straight line. The more time I put in, the more output I get. And I really want to tune this to what we teach in high performance, especially in high performance habits, PQO, prolific quality output. What does that mean? It's the output that's the best of me and the best form of me at a world-class level. Prolific quality output. These videos, in my opinion, are prolific quality output. Me helping you, and it has a legacy and ability to expand and be leveraged across YouTube, across other platforms, across our Kajabi training, all these kind of things. Does that make sense? So what I'm really trying to get at here is that what I thought was the more time I put in, the more productive output I've got. That wasn't the case when I looked over my schedule and looked over and really gave deep consideration to how it works. And I just shared this, by the way, with you. My prolific quality output time, where I get the most output with the least amount of time, is in the first 3 hours of the day, 6:30 to 10. If I'm in creation mode then, you can guarantee, and maybe you sense it through this kind of language. I don't know what just happened, but in the last 2 hours I got done more than I would have in the next week in my typical way of working. Does that make sense? Like you just get in the flow, in the zone, and you're just crushing and going after it, taking care of it. What I also discovered is that in here, for the next 2 hours, that's typically 10 or 11 to the early afternoon, I'm semi-productive from the lens of getting stuff done. And after that, it's kind of a hodgepodge mess overall for me to create and go after. I just know internally, when I'm in flow, It's usually in the morning, and that's where I crush. And I'm just really happy that with our training and everything, we have that earlier in the day. We have our coaching earlier in the day, because I'm at much more at the top of my game during that time. So I just want to make sure I reflected on the model. Output through here is kind of one of those things where you can think about, I worked on this project for 3 hours and it doesn't feel like I got anything done. And the stuff I did get done was crap. That's what can happen in this downslope. In here, I worked on this for 3 hours and it crushed this video, did the editing, got the pieces pulled out, I did the transcription, I got it in Kajabi, I did all the stuff. All that happens here, and I'm so in front of my day. You sense the shift here? There's a law, I think it's called Parkinson's Law, that says if you're given 8 hours to do tasks, but if you were in flow, those tasks would have taken 2, that you'll typically use the 8 hours. That's the reason, going back to what I shared earlier, I had to get rid of that mindset of 9 to 5. And I've been really good about that in probably the last 3 years. Like, I don't even see the world that way anymore. And it's helpful because a lot of people don't see the world that way with what happened with isolation and the pandemic and people working from home in that regard. That all make sense? I hope this is helping you. So my challenge for you, as you think this through, is the output versus input. Where in your day do you feel most productive? Like, if you were to measure the success of what you've created, whatever you're working on, what you're outputting, where is it that you're using the least amount of time, the least amount of input for the maximum amount of output? The old me, this is back in the 90s, 15-hour days, I'm going after it. And I got to tell you, the last 5 hours of that, I could have gone to bed, got up, and crushed that 5-hour work in a half an hour the next morning. I know that about myself. Because as I evolved, I learned that about myself. I just had this mindset that I was the workaholic and I had to get this done no matter what. And I just couldn't even concentrate half the time just because I was exhausted. Does that help? So it's that. What I've also discovered as we look through that lens is there's a diminishing return to my ROI. And I've kind of covered that in some detail already. But the return on my investment of time has diminishing returns as I go throughout my day. So what we have to think through, and I hope you get this, is that where are we most effective? And then on the other side of it, what are we going to do to really enjoy the fun of life? If we can crush for 5 hours and get more done than we used to get done in 8 in that 5-hour window, what's the other end of that, like the bookend to that, the other end of the bookend, that we're going to go out and experience and enjoy and reward ourselves for crushing? What does that look like? So for me, just to give you an illustration here, when I get through this and I'm in this downslope, this is a great time for me to reset, rejuvenate, go for a walk, listen to a podcast, go on YouTube, watch something and learn something. Another thing is to go out for a run, go down to the beach, relax, enjoy, reflect. Even 10 years ago, I would have been like, you're telling me that I can go and reflect and enjoy life during 9 to 5? That's not even possible. I carry around a ton of guilt. That's not the case now. Does that help? I love this stuff, and I hope you're sensing the law of diminishing returns here. I'd call it a law. It's not really a law. But this is the idea, is that we got to find we're in flow and just set our life up around it. I'm sure everybody knows, hey, I'm going to be in flow from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and I cannot be interrupted during that time, and then it's party time. Then it's fun time. Does that help here? Kind of land this ship for you? Oh, so gold. Number 5, and I learned this so well in the last decade, the power of leverage. Now, I've always taught at the entrepreneurial level, always, I'll say, since 92. I've always taught the power of recurring revenue through leverage, meaning you sell something once and then you rebill for it every month. Back in the early days for me, you may have heard my story, it was computer service contracts. Then it was subscriptions to be part of my bulletin board system, to have an internet email address and help support the system. That evolved into live internet service company. You subscribe to get access to the internet and have an email address. Then it evolved into, on top of that, web hosting. You subscribe to have your site hosted, maintained by us. Still happening, still creating income from that. And that's what, 25 years later? Yeah, 25 years later, insane. Still getting checks, still rocking it out. That's the power of leverage in the billing sense. But what I'm talking about from the productivity side also is the power of leverage. I'll put recurring rev here for you, just so we have frame. Recurring revenue is the power of leverage by living into my PQO, my prolific quality output. You know, this video, this training that we're doing right now together, 1 hour long. Pieces of this will go out in YouTube, in my email list, to social, all that kind of stuff. It's me living into that. Somebody may watch this video 5 years from now, get something out of it, and I'll receive payment for that. It's the legacy. You follow? It means creating something once and having it have legacy and legs for the long term. The power of leverage. Leverage is also can be group coaching. It's 1 hour of your time affecting change with 10 people instead of one. And you can charge more. You'll receive more. The charge per person may be less than working with you one-on-one, but the leverage is there. You're putting yourself out once. Some of the best things I've done in the last decade was 0 to 100K training, where we went through and trained people right when we got to 100K in 7 months, how I did it. 7 things I did, 7 things to avoid. And that thing still has people going through it. And that was in 2017. So I don't know, what is that? 18, 19, 4 years ago. Crazy. So I just want to make sure we understand living productively means leverage. That's what, some of the richest people in the world know. They're like, my whole world's leveraged. My financial structure is leveraged. I'm a leveraged person. And I'm living into it. So a great example, leverage, Angie's example. One of my beautiful friends, Angie, who runs gearedup.biz, that's the website. She did an event in this studio in, I think it was 2020. And I want to say it was August or July. It was 2 hours long. We've taken pieces of that event and we're only almost 2/3 of the way through it. And we've leveraged it in her weekly emails. And those pieces have been getting feedback that they've been incredibly helpful from something she did once over a year ago. Does that make sense? How we're pulling the gold, putting the gold out there, even reusing the gold. Sometimes we'll share it over here and we'll share it again 6 months later because it had so much power, but it needs to be shared again because the messaging in it is relevant always. Is that helpful? So my point with productivity, when we think about how to be more productive by working less, is what can we create once that we can sell many times? Leverage, both from an income perspective, but also from a time perspective. The best use of me and so many beautiful people in our mastery community is to be in their studios, creating courses and videos, and then creating sales videos and value videos, and just rolling through that and letting somebody else edit it, somebody else put it together, and maybe they're doing it, or I'm working with them to create the sales pages to really go out and get that change in the world. Anything else, waste of time. And maybe it's not a total waste of time, but anything else is less productive for net effect of change in the world in a bigger way. Is that helpful? Now, I choose personally to still coach people one-on-one, as I shared from the beginning, because I get such reward from that. And I get, we get rated on that, and I get 10s. Maybe once in a while I'll get a 9. I'm so dialed in on coaching one-on-one. That's why I'm going into this being 50 as one of the highest paid high-performance coaches. All my pricing as of August 1st of 2021 just went way up. And I'm just like, you know what? It's time to go. It's time to... And the pricing isn't about my ego. Here's what I've learned as a side effect from the analysis of the last decade. The more people pay, typically, not always, the more people pay, the more committed they are to the process, the more committed they are to the change, the more they take decisive action. I'd say it's true 95% or more of the time for the people I've worked with. So I'm looking to work with people who are really ready to change and are dedicated to it. I've got a very tight schedule as it is, so I'm limiting the amount of people I can work with and serve, and all prices are up. And that's gone into effect already as of this recording. So I just want to make sure you're sensing that power of leverage. And then you choose what you want to do outside of that. Imagine, this is something I love to work with entrepreneurs on, we'll get into the business side of this for a minute, is that if you knew your break even, let's just say it's $100,000 a year, and you had maybe 50 students paying a certain price per month that exceeded $100,000 a year, and that was you training twice per month and being on a Zoom call twice per month. And that was all you had to do. From the income side, how would your life change? People are doing that right now. I could do that, but I do love the one-on-one experience, so I brought that online on purpose. Does that help? Really critical here as we think through productivity and what it is for you. Previous trainings I break down like my different revenue streams, the ones that are trading time for money, the ones that are leveraged, and the ones that are just like passive recurring revenue, dividend income, those kind of things. And you can go back and watch that, but I just want to make sure I frame this up for you. That being said, so many people I work with, and this may be true for you, have said, Char, I need to pivot my view of the world to work with leverage and recurring revenue as a top priority. I need to pull myself out of the one-on-one trading time for money perspective, at least a little bit, so I can work on this. And that's what I started to do in 95, and I've never quit. All of my revenue streams primarily are driven from recurring revenue. Even my one-on-one work is subscription-based. Is that helpful? So I know we're getting into deepness here and into depth. If anything's over your head, please ask. We have our Zoom roundtable today. Be happy to answer you, take care of you. Major life lesson. Going into the next decade, need to live in my PQO and live in leverage. So I'm reducing my one-on-one schedule and I'm increasing video time. That's going to happen as we go into September. And by the way, this is being filmed in August of 2021. So into September of 2021, we'll see that pivot as I go more for leverage. I'm never going to get rid of one-on-one because it's so important to me to serve and help. I just love the one-on-one experience. I've always been that guy. But I am going to reduce it. And I'm actually already in process with that. Had to let a couple people go. You know, that's how it goes. Not in a bad way. They needed to move on to different training, different coaching, and those kind of things. It's part of their progression. So just want to make sure we're on that. And if you want to have that conversation, bring that into our Q&A and we'll rock it. I love this next one, and I'm going to make this red. Strategic laziness. Here's what I learned. This was a very interesting, sort of the yin and yang of the 9-to-5 experience. Strategic laziness is where I'll go through and crush, first 6 hours of a day, and then I'll just take the rest of the day off at the beach and just chill. And I got to tell you, that was a little weird at first, a little awkward when I did that. I'm like, I need to be working right now. I feel guilty being out here. And I had to work through my own psychology to be like, no. You lived here on the downslope. Why not go to the beach? You crushed more than you would have traditionally done in a day inside the first 3 or 5 hours. Now let's get lazy. What happened as a side effect, and what Mark also referenced in the post that he wrote, Mark Manson, the author of The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, was that the more he gets strategically lazy and does stuff that's just not related to work, the more creative he brings to work. The more that he was a workaholic, the less creative he brought to work, the more he got in the downward spiral of not producing PQO, prolific quality output. So the challenge for you, as you think through strategic laziness for you, is where can you put strategic laziness into your life? And maybe laziness isn't the right word, but where can you put strategic fun and freedom and happiness with your peeps in your life? Any thoughts on that? So much magic here. So gold. I kept thinking, especially as I evolved to this, and that would be about 4 to 5 years ago, I'm missing out, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, and somebody's going to catch me. It's just the mind's playing those games because I was so conditioned to the 9-to-5, and I'm like, nobody's going to catch anybody. And if they do, what are you doing not working? Like, do you work during this time? Have you not evolved? Because it sounds to me like you need coaching. I'm going to challenge their character, their contribution, their connection. If you're working when you should be, especially after hours, traditional hours, and you're missing out on this, then we got a problem. We got to work on that. But life's short. And we can get our stuff done shorter. Let's really own the time that we have to be strategically lazy. And that was a major boost for me in productivity. So much so that I dedicated time in 2019, I think it was, I did a week where I worked 2 hours and then did just fun stuff for 6 and then worked again. And I got more done in those chunks than I would have done if they were all at once. Does that make sense? I was just trying out things. I was doing the digital nomad. Rob Murray, one of our beautiful mastery community members, came to Florida and we did a digital nomad day where we went and worked in one of the coffee shops in Naples for an hour. Then we went out to the beach, walked for an hour, then came back and worked and got so much going down, getting done, taking care of it, because we were living in that, like, I would like to say Tarzaning between productive work and productive reset, rejuvenate, walk, express, get our body moving. And that day, and that I've done that day many times on my own, those are the days where I really feel like I moved the needle for PQO. The other days that I feel like I move the needle for PQO is where I'm in filming and going after, just like I am right now with you, and going after getting the legacy captured, getting it out, putting the offers up, going after it that way. Does that help kind of land this for you? Strategic laziness is critical. One of my big revelations from the 10-year deep dive was just saying, you know what, I need to introduce even more strategic laziness. I need to have Fridays for me. Now, typically the way it's worked traditionally is I'm in the studio Fridays and sometimes on Saturday, like for the trainings. And then the last half of Friday is mine. Maybe the whole Friday needs to be mine. And I need to get things done before that. And I can do that. I feel so confident in that now. Is that helpful? So remember, and there's a quote by Steve Jobs, and I'm going to totally butcher it, but it says something along the lines of, if you're feeling stifled, stressed, get bored, because boredom leads to creativity. Creativity leads to new ideas, new product, new inspiration. And boredom can happen through strategic laziness. Is that helpful? So gold. Thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I'm enjoying being here with you and just reflecting back on some of the big life lessons. Last one, the best me, productivity now. What I really want to make sure that you're getting out of this is, what does it look like as I go into a week now with the life lesson here? That life lesson is reduction of one-to-one. Secondarily, still living in the time blocks, knowing that my flow state is in the morning for the first 3 hours, not scheduling anything in those days. I have one day where I have a morning group because I coach people in Australia, and that's their evening is my morning, so I have to do that. But not scheduling anything in the mornings, and that's my time to create, crush, and go. Then having this time to, when I'm not as productive, I could be editing. That doesn't require as much of me doing this work. Does that make sense? And then on the downslope, it's time to go, play, party, enjoy, run, exercise, get out, do things, have fun. That's the arc. Now, in terms of the ambitions, the life's work that I'm doing, the big thing is building out our final piece for the next decade, which is quarterly campaigns and then weekly trainings through CS for Life. Quarterly campaigns going after this next year, we'll be going after the 0 to million conversation. Based on all the work we've done, how to go from 0 to 1 million. And of course, people who join that get the immediate access to their 100K conversation, which is the nitty gritty stuff. And that was all done, by the way, without using ads. That was organic growth. And I teach you exactly how I did it and how to structure your finances, all these kind of things from that perspective. I'll make sure to link to that training below if you don't have it already. You can go ahead and get that below and just get in and roll and go after it. So there'll be campaigns around the 0 to $1 million conversation with upsells and downsells. And that's the big arc of what I'm doing in the mastery community, in my life and business success group work. Then there's other projects that I'm working on. And due to time, I'm not going to go into them all. If you go back to our revenue stream training last season, you'll see what those projects are and handle it. But the big part I want to make sure of, and we trained on this last season too, is food. I'm very clear about the feelings I want to have while I'm doing it, the outputs that need to be sort of met, and the outcomes that I want to have for me, for you, for the world, on everything that I'm doing. That's living fully productively through the lens of high performance. That's what the High Performance Planner and the new Growth Day app and the Growth Day platform is all about, is assuring that we're not only knowing we got to do things and what those things are, but we're going to bring good feeling to it, and we're going to be intentional about those feelings. That's high performance productivity, baby. If you have not been coached by a high performance coach, me and a bunch of others, our certified high performance coaches in our mastery community, there's an application below. If you're in our mastery community, you have access to our group coaching. If you're not in our mastery community, there's an application below for that too. So I just want to make sure we're moving this forward for you so you can get the level of productivity you want in your life, but also feel purposeful, have the fun, rock it out, do all the gold, take care of it, feel like you're living your full, vibrant, authentic life. So, Adult Learning Theory says we got to review what we covered. These are the 6 areas: clarity, energy, courage, productivity, influence, purpose. When we have those dialed in and then we reflect that into a life fully lived, helping ourselves and helping others, selfless versus selfish, taking care of us so we can take care of others, really critical. Productivity defined, our life's work paired with our responsibilities. We're handling both. And I got to tell you, I love this saying. I didn't share it with you just yet. Done by one. Get that stuff done by one. The rest of the day is yours. Kind of goes along that model. Critical. I love the saying, this works for me through the lens of my flow state, create in the mornings, manage in the afternoons. Manage to me is autopilot stuff. Creating is very much, it's like impromptu. Me going, I'm not working from any script. I'm just working from a framework. And I got to be here energetically with you and own this with you. Does that all make sense? Next, output doesn't equal input. Here's what I thought. Here's the reality of it as I reflected back on the last 10 years. Input, time, output. My highest level of output is in the first 3 hours of the day. Gotta leverage that. Next, return on investment, diminishing returns, especially after 11 a.m. I really got clear about that. And I'm like, you know what? Cool. I know it. Now I'm going to live into it even more. The power of leverage, the power of recurring revenue, but the power of PQO. Creating something once, putting it online, and having people buy it many times over. I choose to do that. I also choose to do one-on-one work. And I don't have to do the one-on-one work, but I love the one-on-one work. So I do it. Good? Sweet. Next, strategic laziness. Assure you have hours, not minutes. Not like, oh, maybe if I have some time tonight. Hours of time per day to just relax, reset, rejuvenate, restore. Take care of you. Go out for the walk. If you live where I live, you can go to the beach. Go to the beach. Get on the boat. Do what you got to do. Come back, do some more work if you want. Or get your stuff done in the morning. As you come up with ideas when you're in that flow state of having fun, and I have that in my Apple Notes and in my voice memos, I'll do this, do that. Expect creative ideas to flow, especially after you get in the rhythm of the strategic laziness. That all makes sense? So gold. Best Me Productivity Now, shared with you what that is. I want to make sure you're seeing the reality of how this plays out as I go into my 50s. And if there's any takeaways for you, just let me know what that was for you. This ends the training part of our work today. Final piece here is action, challenging you. First thing, create your dream day and your dream week. Let's spell week, Brett. And just as an illustration, put 50% of your time as you time. 50% of your time is you time. Taking care of you, exercising, doing those things. Strategic laziness time. Just handling, relaxing, watching YouTube, Netflix, growing. I don't like to watch like mindless things too often, like Netflix, certain TV shows and that. I may watch like right now I'm watching Manifest on Netflix, and that's the only show that I'm committed to in the last 2 years. 3 years ago I was watching Game of Thrones. That was the only show I was committed to. I don't think that's mindless. It's good entertainment in my opinion, but I don't do much of that. But what I do in that time is I'll go and study new things, go and explore, research, and develop. So create your dream day and week, including 50% you time. What does that look like? That would be from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to work. I'm going to take breaks in there to reset myself, get intentional. From 11 a.m. on, it's my time. Or from 7 a.m. to 1, I'm going to take care of everything I got to. I'm done by 1, I'm out, and I'm going to go and enjoy life. I'm going to really go out and enjoy my life while I have my health and my ability to do so. Whatever that is for you, I don't know what that is for you. You may do a journaling exercise or visualize what those things could be. Second, test and measure your inputs and outputs. Where is the flow? Where is the harmony? Where is the flow is, where do you have extreme amount of PQO inside of a shortened amount of time? Where are you doing your best work where it's flowing out of you in a shortened amount of time? Where's the harmony? Where do you feel in harmony with life? This to me is harmony. Me being here, and that same day, I think it was that day, I had to do a coaching call. 2. I lived into that. I lived into this. Kind of like Tarzan, I was flowing between work. What do I consider work? Like purposeful productivity, we'll call it. Coaching somebody, and I flowed right into going out and enjoying Piedmont Park, the Botanical Gardens, Atlanta, hanging out with my brother, hanging out with my girls, playing computer games. Overcooked 2, we played on the Switch. That was a lot of fun. We played Borderlands 3. It was a lot of fun. We were doing all these different things, but there was a harmony to it. I don't like the word balance. I like the word harmony. Does that help? Number 3, create, test, and measure your leverage. And maybe this is language that's way out of your realm, and if that's the case, come into our Q&A and we'll talk this out. But what is it for you to live a leveraged life? The smartest people are living leveraged lives. You may have heard about the great exodus of the work scene right now. People are just like, you know what? I'm not going back to work. I've enjoyed working from home. I'm going to figure out a way to do that. And there's so many options today. And so many of those options can be leveraged. If they're an expert in something, they can develop their own courses and programs. And there's great platforms for it, much like Kajabi, the platform that we're in. And then finally, and most importantly, ask for help. Find accountability. One of our goals as we evolve, create success for life, is to bring in weekly accountability to assure that every week you have a place where you report to somebody and say, I committed to these things and I'm moving these things forward. So we get that necessity that's taught in high performance habits, the deadline, the power of deadline for you. That's a big endeavor for us as I look back on the last decade. I'm like, I didn't provide enough accountability to people. I didn't bust people up enough. I wasn't courageous enough to challenge people on deadline. And boy, is that changing now. So I'd love to know, if you're up for sharing, what was it in this training today that landed for you? Comment below. What was it in this training that you needed to hear, that you needed to maybe get introduced to that new perspective? What was it in this training that you just need to sit back and absorb, that was a breakthrough for you, or a commitment or a challenge for you moving forward? Anything there for you? Would love to hear. Comment below, send me an email, come into our Zoom with those highlights. Would love to hear it. Thank you so incredibly much for being on a journey with me. I cannot wait to hit our business mastery training here shortly, and I will see you in just a little bit. Thanks for being here. Season 5, baby. Season 5, Session 1 complete. Take care, and we rocked it. See ya.